Story 1. Social media was once enjoyable, but now it has become a toxic environment where everyone is showing off. Story 2. eBay used to be an online garage sale where you could buy items people no longer wanted for much less than retail and find replacement parts for unusual things. Nowadays, it is effectively just a less reliable version of Amazon. Story 3. Backpack, shoe, and winter jacket companies. Whenever a good brand becomes popular, they start selling low-quality products at inflated prices. Story 4. Chicken wings used to be $15 for 50 pieces. Now, it is almost $15 for 10 pieces. Story 5. Festivals like Coachella have become focused on influencers. No one cares about the music anymore. Story 6. Everest is one of the most amazing places on Earth, but it is covered in trash and the bodies of people who should never have been there in the first place. Story 7. Garage sales used to be a good way to find hidden treasures at a good price. Now it is just a bunch of people going around buying items to resell on social media or their own full-time garage sale. The sellers also tend to ask too much for the items they are trying to get rid of. Story 8. Disney parks used to be expensive but not out of reach. You would go in, and lines were simply lines that everyone had to wait in. There was no pressure to secure a 7 a.m. virtual queue. There was no need to get dining reservations months in advance. We visited Disney World in the 1990s with zero plans and just went with the flow. Now, you have to practically plan everything, and many things carry an additional fee to enjoy. The spontaneity is gone, replaced by the need for rigid plans, or you will end up spending thousands to sit in the tiki room and go home feeling ripped off. Story 9. I think one of the best things that got ruined by popularity is Instagram. It used to be more about sharing fun, random moments, but now it feels very curated and competitive. Everyone is trying to be an influencer, and it is less about genuine connections. Story 10. Airbnb began as a great experience, with both renters and guests exchanging small gifts and personal handovers. Now, most people agree that it is better to stay at a hotel. Story 11. AskReddit used to be a place to ask questions about obscure topics that were difficult to find answers for with a typical Google search. Now it is mostly questions aimed at gaining popularity, such as, what is the best thing that got ruined by popularity? Instead of practical questions like, how can I get my iPhone's cracked screen repaired without exposing my personal data to a technician? Story 12. A good deal or couponing. I remember a few years ago I found a cheap flight to New Orleans for about $45 and got upgraded to first class because I was a frequent flyer with United Airlines at the time. Now people complain if they do not get upgraded, but upgrades only happen for a good reason. At hotel check-ins, people hold up the line trying to negotiate a better rate. I have been to fast food places where people try to use expired coupons or stack them, then get upset that the place is trying to make money. People can be difficult. Story 13. Popularity ruins almost everything, and you can thank the internet for ruining most of it. Yet here we are. Story 14. College education. We are sending the wrong people at the wrong time to the wrong institutions and then burdening them with debt, wondering why it is not working. College should focus on learning theory and philosophy, not direct job training. Practical skills are better acquired at trade schools, where most people would be happier. Even accounting, business, nursing, and law should be considered more as trades than traditional degrees. University education should consist of 4 years exploring reasoning, the Socratic method, the history of mathematics, and rediscovering the scientific process across different fields. There is nothing wrong with wanting a paycheck in fields like mathematics or medicine, but those individuals should not attend college, as they are likely to be unhappy. Story 15. Football can be close to impossible to get a ticket to watch a team, and if you can, it is expensive. Story 16. Camping. People were looking for activities to do during the coronavirus pandemic, and many of them took up camping. Now the campgrounds are packed with people who do not respect others. There is trash everywhere, excessive noise, and more. Additionally, the popularity has caused the prices of site rentals to double or even triple. Story 17. National parks, especially Yellowstone, experienced awful traffic, harassment of animals, and litter. Story 18. Weird, ethnic, or butcher's cuts of meat. Flank steak, oxtail, that sort of thing. These used to be very inexpensive, but prices increased dramatically years ago, surpassing inflation by a significant margin. Story 19. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If it is not rock and roll, it does not belong in the Hall of Fame. Go ahead and have a Hall of Fame for every genre of music you want, but for the love of all that is holy in rock, stop calling tracks that have nothing to do with rock, rock. I am not saying that these other genres are without merit. What I am saying is that just because they are popular does not make them rock. It is not the Pop Hall of Fame. It is not the Rap Hall of Fame. All of these genres deserve their own recognition, just not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Story 20. Thrift stores and good surfing spots. Secret little tucked-away travel locations. Now every hipster with a digital single-lens reflex camera, a mustache, and a mullet shows up saying, "Oh my gosh, guys, this place is amazing. The food is incredible." And nobody knows about it. A year later, every overweight pale tourist and their many children are there for a slice of the local life. They replaced the local taco shop with a restaurant called Crazy Augusto's Fajita Festivilla. All night, people are out screaming, fighting, vomiting, urinating on the streets, and littering. Teenage sex workers and drug dealers begin to appear, and the local people are completely overwhelmed. Story 21. The Office. I used to love it, but then everybody started quoting it nonstop, especially in dating applications. Story 22. Social media is now mostly people trying to sell you something. Story 23. I like the internet, but I miss how it was in the late 1990s and early 2000s before everyone was online. Story 24. Barbecue. Cuts of meat like brisket used to be inexpensive because they were low quality. Now I can barely afford to buy these affordable cuts due to their popularity. Story 25. My favorite forest. People found out about it because it was in some movies many years ago, and now it is full of trash and loud, unpleasant people who only go there to take a selfie at one location while blasting music from their Bluetooth speakers in a forest. It used to be a peaceful place full of flowers and animals. Now it is full of plastic, human waste, and urine. It is sad and frustrating. I wish people would find some other place to damage and leave this one alone again, or at least learn how to behave in nature. Story 26. Social media. I miss old Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter when they were purely about engagement and interaction. Now they are flashy, empty apps full of advertisements and influencers. Every third post on Facebook and Instagram is an advertisement for a cheap zombie game. Twitter is just selling me schemes or enticing me to pay £22.49 a month to remove advertisements from their platform, which did not have advertisements 10 years ago. Ironically, these app owners have more money than they will ever need for 10 lifetimes, but there are more advertisements than ever. Instagram used to be so simple, photo sharing. I am an amateur photographer and always receive tons of engagement from sharing my modest photography. Now I get nothing. TikTok is now basically QVC with a few people acting silly in between. Every other post is someone selling toilet paper, a torch, or an electronic coloring book. Bring back simple social media before it is too late. Story 27. Hipster coffee shops. Man. $8 for a drink that tastes like burnt beans. Thanks, Instagram. Story 28. Most things. People are unpleasant. Specifically, I have to choose that one good sandwich place in your town. You know the one. Now there are lines out the door, and they cost like $15 per sandwich. Story 29. Being able to earn supplemental income doing rideshare or deliveries is understandable due to supply and demand. However, it baffles me that so many people are willing to work for less than minimum wage while the companies take most of the profits. Story 30. Airbnb was great for a while. Now everything is Airbnb. I would rather get a hotel room with room service. Story 31. Nobody goes there anymore. It is too crowded. Yogi Berra. Story 32. Traveling by airplane. No, I'm not old. My aunt was a flight attendant for Pan American World Airways in the past and showed me a photo. Everyone was dressed up and they served real prime rib. I might sound rude, but I wish traveling by plane were more expensive to make it more classy. Story 33. Traveling, Many restaurants become tourist traps and lose their authenticity. Story 34. I have never been there, but the actual beach in Thailand from the movie, The Beach, had to be shut down by the government for a while because it became overcrowded. Story 35. Deadpool used to be a complex character with deeper moments and a lot of heart. The internet popularized him, and now he is mostly just laughter memes. He lost what made him special. Story 36. Renaissance Fair used to be about hippies and craftspeople. Now it is dominated by corporations as far as the eye can see. 40 years was enough. I do not attend anymore. Story 37. Music festivals used to be all about the music and vibes. Now it is just influencers chasing content and overpriced everything. Feels more like a fashion show than a concert. Story 38. Beautiful travel destinations that are now overrun with social media influencers and tourists. Story 39. Everything is ruined by popularity. Things become popular because they are good, but it is a double-edged sword. Bands are great to see in small venues, but once they get popular, they play in bigger and bigger venues. Brands are cool when they are niche, but when they get co-opted for the mainstream, Carhartt comes to mind. Story 40. Throwaway cuts of meat. I miss my $2 per pound tri-tip and practically free oxtail. Story 41. Batman. Star Wars. Too many reboots, spin-offs, cashing in, and oversaturation. Story 42. Stranger Things was widely enjoyed until Season 4, which some felt was disappointing. The season introduced Eddie Munson, a new character who was actually great and provided a wonderful opportunity to explore how a person can appear different on the outside than on the inside. At first, he seemed a bit awkward, but as his personality became clearer, many people developed small crushes on him. This is normal, as viewers often become attracted to characters in shows. However, some creators on applications like TikTok reacted negatively, causing many to say, "Oh, you actually like Stranger Things? Isn't that a cringe show?" Despite this, Stranger Things is an excellent series, and I am not alone in thinking so. Story 43. Portland, Oregon, was the most magical place growing up in the early 2000s. It was not overly populated or overpriced and had little traffic outside of rush hours. In the 2010s, that quickly changed due to its growing popularity and exposure through social media. Presently, everything there feels too crowded with an excessive amount of traffic. It is sad to know it will probably never have the charm I grew up with again. Story 44. Craft beer used to be made by enthusiasts trying to create artisanal brews. Then many people who valued social media likes more than beer joined in, and now we have beverages that taste more like candy. Story 45. National parks. Traffic is very heavy now to enter the parks. Parking is difficult to find. Additionally, you spend a lot of time waiting for people taking pictures before you can move on. Story 46. When Metallica's Black Album was released, my 13-year-old brother-in-law and all his friends started listening to it. I knew it was time to stop following the band. Story 47. Anime. I was bullied and isolated as the weird kid in high school from 2015 to 2018. After famous singers, actors, and social media platforms showed love for anime, it became very popular, especially during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not the same anymore. I'm not gatekeeping anime. I'm sure many people agree with this. Now, anime collaborates with major companies. In the car community, such as with stickers, it just doesn't feel authentic anymore. It feels like just another money grab. Story 48. Reddit became commoditized and sanitized, a shadow of what it was a decade ago. It is inevitable for every social platform, but it is still sad to see how much it has changed. Some will say it changed for the better, but I do not see it that way. Story 49. Wrestling. Growing up in the 1970s and 1980s and watching these athletes compete was fun. It was all about the wrestling back then. Then came Vince McMahon with long, drawn-out, nonsensical storylines and exaggerated commentators. Story 50. Living anywhere between the Sierra Nevadas and the Rockies. Also, barbecue. Story 51. National parks in Washington state, such as Mount Rainier Paradise, have fragile alpine flora. I have seen many people go off trail and trample over it to get a selfie. It hurts my heart because of the damage being done. Story 52. Online console games. Before the general public could push a button and instantly speak into a microphone, you had to put in a modicum of effort to get online. Even that small barrier to entry acted as enough of a filter to make gaming overall a friendly and fun experience. There were trolls for sure, but it was nothing like it is now, where it is so bad you have to second-guess joining voice chat or even playing online in the first place. Story 53. Produce. The organic enthusiasts popularized a buzzword on their own, and companies immediately applied the organic label to everything and increased the price. For a while, I could still buy non-organic produce, but gradually they removed it, and now only sell overpriced organic produce. Story 54. Social media was once enjoyable. Facebook, for example, used to be about family, sharing photos, updating status with humor, and seeing what friends were up to. Nowadays, it is overwhelmed with advertisements and unnecessary content. Instagram was for sharing photos and for budding photographers, but now it is cluttered with irrelevant material. TikTok has become a platform primarily for selling low-quality products for commission. Twitter used to be one of the best applications I used, but now it has become focused on monetization, filled with ads, lacking engagement, and overloaded with distractions. Story 55. Internet forums. It was a lot better when it was just enthusiasts and deeply passionate niche hobbyists. Story 56. I used to pay for streaming services to avoid commercials, but now they are full of commercials unless you want to pay more to watch without ads. Sometimes I'm glad I have kept most of my DVDs. Story 57. DJing. Now every person with a laptop or a standalone setup can just hit sync and call themselves a disc jockey. Disc jockeys used to take listeners on a journey, tell a story with their track selection, and manually beat match and work the equalizer. Now almost all disc jockeys do is lazily throw together 10 to 15 of their favorite tracks that week and call it a set. No thought process, no actual work involved, just basic short mixes. Boring individuals. Story 58. Dungeons and Dragons, the geeky niche hobby with complex rules and dozens of tables and charts, has been simplified to a version where you do not even need to fully read the rulebook to play. My unpopular opinion is that the complex game with all the rules, charts, and tables was more fun since that was kind of my thing. Story 59. Black Friday shopping used to be such a fun time, lining up at Target at 3 a.m. to get a first 100 door prize goodie bag. Now, it is online with limited goodies in stores. The magic is gone. Story 60. If there is something you got to love before it got ruined, you should feel lucky and appreciate that you enjoyed it at its peak. Story 61. Gatekeeping. Seeing all these comments is making it lose its charm. Story 62. The hashtag #MeToo movement was a necessary and important social movement that held many perpetrators accountable. However, the way it extended to canceling anyone who was merely accused was excessive. Story 63. Montana used to have a slightly energized summer atmosphere, and now it feels intense when the tourists arrive. Story 64. Duck hunting. Land leases in prime hunting areas used to be fairly affordable. They are expensive now. Story 65. Toyota used to represent quality, durability, and reliability. Now it is overpriced with plastic components, flimsy doors, and numerous recalls and problems. Story 66. Rick and Morty. The show itself is still really good, but the negative side of the fan base ruined the ability to publicly show your fandom without being associated with them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.